dispensing Lake City quiet pills to lousy bastards in need of permanent rest since 1968. Someone wrote that sentence and posted it on the internet in the early 2000s. It sat there, mostly ignored, for years. Then the man who might have written it died. And when strangers on the internet went looking for him, they found a website that shouldn't have existed. One with hidden code, military-sounding job listings, and a trail that seemed to connect, however loosely, to a real international assassination. 16 years later, nobody has proven what that website actually was. Not a hoax. Not a joke. Not a confirmed conspiracy either. Just unresolved. This is Lake City Quiet Pills. And by the end of this video, you're going to have more questions than you started with. Let's go back to the internet of 2009. If you weren't around for it, it's worth painting the picture. Reddit, back then, wasn't the front page of the internet the way it is now. It was smaller, scrappier, mostly just people who'd found their way there from other forums, still figuring out what the site even was. It had that early internet feeling, the sense that you could stumble onto something strange and nobody official would ever notice or clean it up. That's the environment a user named Religion of Peace was posting in. Regulars on the site just called him Milo, and Milo was not a typical presence. Most anonymous internet users blend into the noise. Throwaway jokes, quick opinions, gone in a scroll. Milo didn't blend in. His comments had a strange, specific texture to them. He came across as old, reportedly in his 70s, and he talked like someone who'd lived a very different kind of life than the average Redditor. He'd drop lines about being an old soldier, about having done bad things. Not dramatically, not for attention, almost casually, the way someone mentions a past job they don't really want to talk about. Some users found him abrasive, even unpleasant. Others were fascinated. Everyone agreed on one thing. He didn't sound like he was performing a character. He sounded like someone who actually believed what he was saying. And then, on July 17, 2009, Milo's story ended, at least the story anyone could verify. A different user, going by the handle 226, posted to the community that Milo had died. 79 years old, according to the post. No obituary. No news article. No family member confirming anything. Just one anonymous stranger telling a forum full of other anonymous strangers that somebody they'd only ever known through a screen was gone. On any other day, on any other website, that would have been a small, slightly sad footnote. A stranger passes, a thread gets a few replies, everyone moves on. This time, people didn't move on. They started digging. The first real lead came from outside Reddit entirely. An old account on fark.com, a much older internet forum, under the username Angel26. That account wasn't new. It had been active since 2001, 8 full years before Milo ever showed up on Reddit. Which meant that whoever was behind this had been building a digital presence long before anyone thought to look for one. And attached to nearly every post from that account was a signature line. A tagline. The kind of thing people used to put under their posts on old forums, back when a signature was basically your internet business card. It read, "Dispensing Lake City quiet pills to lousy bastards in need of permanent rest since 1968. That sentence is where the entire mystery gets its name, and it rewards a second read. On the surface, it sounds like dark forum humor, the kind of edgy, tough guy one-liner that was everywhere on early 2000s internet culture. Not exactly subtle, not exactly serious. But sit with the phrase quiet pills for a moment. It's not a real medical term. It's not established slang anyone had documented before this account started using it. To the people digging through the account, it sounded uncomfortably specific, like a euphemism. A softened way of describing a method of making someone disappear. Quietly, permanently. And then investigators found something that turned a strange signature line into an active investigation. An email address attached to that FARC account. It traced to a domain, lakecityquietpills.com, a real, functioning website. When the first Redditors pulled up lakecityquietpills.com, they described something almost anticlimactic. It looked boring. Genuinely, aggressively boring. An image hosting page, the kind of bare-bones site people used to dump photos onto in the days before easy cloud storage. No dramatic warnings. No red and black conspiracy aesthetic. No countdown clock, no manifesto, no obvious hook. If you'd stumbled onto it without context, you would have closed the tab in about 4 seconds. But the people investigating didn't just look at the page. They looked underneath it, at the HTML, the raw code that builds every website behind the scenes, invisible to a normal visitor unless you go looking for it. And buried in that code, they found something that had no reason to be there. Text that read like job listings. Not listings for freelance work, not classified ads for used furniture. The language was clipped, formal, specific in a way that made people uneasy the moment they read it. Multiple users independently said the same thing. It sounded like something out of a military contracting notice. The kind of listing you'd expect if someone were quietly hiring personnel for private security work, not posting vacation photos. And then, at some point, those listings changed. What had been readable, however unsettling, turned into something else entirely. A block of characters. No structure a casual reader could recognize. No key. No footnote explaining what it meant. Just sitting there, embedded in the source code of an otherwise forgettable website, like it had been left for someone specific to find. Nobody who found it could crack it. Nobody still can. Word spreads fast when a mystery has a name, a website, and a body count of exactly one confirmed death that nobody can actually verify happened the way it was described. A dedicated subreddit formed, r/Lake City Quiet Pills, and it quickly became the central hub for an entire community of amateur investigators. People who spent their evenings pulling archived versions of the site from the Wayback Machine. People comparing timestamps. People cross-referencing WHOIS records to track who technically owned the domain, and when ownership quietly changed hands. And it did change hands. Multiple times. For different owners, across the years that followed, according to records people managed to piece together, each transition happening quietly with no public explanation, no statement, nothing. As the investigation grew, a familiar signature resurfaced. Angel26, or sometimes shortened to just 226, leaving new comments in the mystery's orbit. Short, cryptic, never quite confirming anything, never quite denying it either, just enough breadcrumb to keep the thread alive, to keep people convinced there was still something worth finding. It's worth pausing here, because this is the part of the story that separates Lake City Quiet Pills from a typical internet ghost story. There's no single jump scare moment, no dramatic reveal. It's slower than that. A mystery built entirely out of small, individually explainable details that, stacked together, start to feel like a pattern too specific to be coincidence. A dead man who talked like a soldier. A decade-old account with a chilling tagline. A boring website hiding coded job listings. A domain that kept quietly changing owners. And then, in January of 2010, something happened in the real world that turned all of it into something bigger. On January 19, 2010, a senior Hamas commander named Mahmoud al-Mabhouh was assassinated in a hotel room in Dubai. It became one of the most closely examined intelligence operations of the decade. Investigators would later piece together a team of more than 24 operatives, moving in and out of the country using forged passports and false identities from multiple nations. Hotel security footage, released publicly, showed a coordinated, professional operation. People in disguises, careful timing, no wasted movement. It was the kind of thing that reads more like a spy film script than a real event, except it was very real, and it dominated international headlines for weeks. And somewhere in the middle of all that coverage, the people still investigating Lake City Quiet Pills noticed something. Buried in the archived job listings from the site, the ones with the military-sounding language, the ones that later dissolved into unreadable code, one posting appeared to reference personnel movement. And the timing of that listing lined up, roughly, with the same window as the operation in Dubai. That's the thread. That's the single connective detail that took Lake City Quiet Pills from strange internet oddity to possible evidence of a real mercenary recruitment network operating in plain sight. Think about what that theory actually implies if it's true. A website anyone could stumble across, sitting one click away, hidden behind boring image hosting branding, quietly coordinating contract work for people whose job was making other people disappear. Not buried in the dark web, behind passwords and encryption. Just sitting there, in the open internet, waiting for someone to notice and mostly counting on the fact that nobody would. It's a genuinely unsettling idea. And for a certain corner of the internet, it became gospel. Here's the part almost nobody includes when they tell this story late at night, and it's the part that actually matters most if you care about what's true. There has never been a single piece of verified evidence linking Lake City quiet pills to the Al-Mabhouh assassination. Not one confirmed document. Not one named individual. Not one law enforcement statement. The entire connection rests on timing, one ambiguous job listing, interpreted a specific way, landing in roughly the same window as a real, completely unrelated world event that had nothing to do with any Reddit account. When journalists and analysts have looked into it more seriously over the years, the consensus lands in a pretty consistent place. This is a coincidence that got amplified by a community that badly wanted it to mean something. That's not a criticism of the people investigating. Genuinely strange, unresolved details deserve scrutiny. But wanting a mystery to have a dramatic answer isn't the same as having evidence that it does. There's also a mundane possibility that gets less attention than it probably deserves. That this was an elaborate hoax or something closer to an alternate reality game. A long-form, collaborative fiction built by one or several people who understood exactly how internet communities behave. Drop a cryptic detail. Let people find it. Add another layer once they start talking. Internet mystery culture, especially in that era, was full of exactly this kind of slow-burn storytelling. Some of it built deliberately as a creative project, never intended to be solved at all because the entire point was that it couldn't be. Under that theory, Milo's death, the coded job listings, the shifting ownership, all of it could be construction. Not evidence of something dark and real underneath the surface, but a very good example of how easily the internet convinces itself that a story is true simply because enough people are looking for the ending together. The honestly frustrating answer is, both theories remain alive, because neither one has ever been definitively closed. So what actually happened to Lake City quiet pills? For years, the mystery kept resurfacing in cycles. Podcast would cover it. A video essay would go semi-viral. A new wave of internet detectives would descend on the old threads, the archived screenshots, the Wayback Machine snapshots, and for a little while the case would feel active again, like new evidence was just one more scroll away. At one point, the story even reached mainstream media. A segment referencing the mystery aired on CNN. But that coverage reportedly focused less on any mercenary recruitment angle and more on the broader, murkier world of anonymous online communities and questionable content moderation, a related but separate rabbit hole entirely. Then, more recently, something happened that effectively closed the door on future investigation. The current owner of the site requested to be excluded from the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine, meaning that whatever older, unaltered versions of the site still existed in digital storage were pulled from public access. Around the same time, there were reports of a hack targeting the site, along with an ominous notification sent out to some of its users. Combined, these two events mean that a significant amount of whatever evidence remained is now, quite possibly, gone. Not deleted in some dramatic cover-up necessarily, but functionally unreachable to anyone trying to pick the case back up today. The subreddit that once hosted the most dedicated investigation eventually went private, then effectively disappeared from public view. No confession ever surfaced. No arrest was ever made. Nobody claiming to be Milo or 2-6 or Angel 26 ever stepped forward to explain or deny any of it. It didn't end. It just went quiet. There's a specific kind of discomfort that comes from a story like this, one that doesn't build toward an answer. Most true crime, most internet mysteries eventually give you something. An arrest, a confession, a definitive it was fake or it was real. Your brain gets to file it away, close the loop, move on to the next story. Lake City quiet pills doesn't offer that. Was Milo actually a 79-year-old man carrying the weight of a violent past, using an anonymous internet account as the only place he could ever be honest about it? Was the entire thing an elaborate, patient piece of collaborative fiction, built by someone who understood exactly how to make strangers feel like they'd stumbled onto something they weren't supposed to see? Or is there something real still sitting underneath all of it? Something that slipped quietly out of reach the moment too many people started looking? Nobody knows. And at this point, given how much of the original evidence has already vanished from public access, it's entirely possible nobody ever will. What's left is a phrase, a tagline written by someone, for reasons nobody has ever explained, that's still being repeated in comment sections and forum threads more than 15 years later. Dispensing Lake City quiet pills to lousy bastards in need of permanent rest. Whoever wrote that sentence knew exactly what they were doing. They built something that couldn't be closed, and in doing so, they made sure it would never really end. That's what separates a story like this from almost every other internet mystery out there. There's no monster to point a flashlight at. No confirmed villain. No tidy conclusion. No satisfying final scene. Just a website. A man who may or may not have existed the way he claimed. A tagline that refuses to disappear. And a question that was never and may never be answered. If you've ever gone down a rabbit hole like this one, found something online that felt like it wasn't meant for you, I want to hear about it. Tell me in the comments below. And if you want more stories like this, the ones that don't come with a neat ending, make sure you're subscribed, because there are darker, stranger corners of the internet we haven't covered yet. I'll see you in the next one.